I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. Let's cook. Are you hungry? What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Raquel. It's a miracle I even am making this episode right now. If you guys watched last Sunday's video, you know that I almost didn't make this episode because I was a little overwhelmed with planning for Thanksgiving, and I just didn't know if I would really have time to edit and stuff. Since Thanksgiving is Thursday and this video is going to go up the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I just didn't know if it would really make sense to do a cooking video, seeing as even if I did do a Thanksgiving dish, you guys might not be able to make it the next day since it's so last minute. But I want to make it work for you guys, so I'm going to make it happen. Today I'm actually going to make the crust on screen as well, so bear with me because I'm not as confident with my crust baking skills. Today we're gonna make homemade apple pie with a homemade crust. Both the apple pie and the crust were adapted from Taste Better from scratch. I made this apple pie last year. I didn't do a Cooking with Raquel episode because that didn't exist yet. I'm making different desserts for Thanksgiving Day. I'm gonna make a pumpkin pie, which you guys saw in the last Cooking with Raquel episode, or Baking with Raquel. I'm also gonna make some cake pops because we haven't had them in a while. I'm gonna make gingerbread cake pops and Oreo cake pops because it's a classic. But back to this episode. I'm gonna put it in the Ninja Bullet just because I'm going to blend the flour and the butter together. I started using this new flour, you guys. I am so excited about this flour, okay? You guys know I care a lot about the ingredients and what I eat and what I'm using. I just discovered this brand, One Mighty Mill. This is their fresh milled flour. If you guys wanna know the difference between fresh milled flour and factory produced flour, just go on their website. They explain it in such a good way. And yes, you can taste the difference. I've already used this flour. I started off with a small bag to try it out and fell in love immediately. So I'm gonna keep buying this flour and keep using it, and I'm probably gonna use more than half of this bag just for Thanksgiving alone. This requires 2.5 cups of flour. We're gonna spoon and level it. That's the best way to do this. So when you spoon and level, you do exactly what it sounds like. You spoon the flour into your measuring cup. That is so that you don't pack it. You don't wanna pack your flour tightly. There are some things you wanna pack, like brown sugar. Unless you're using gluten-free flour, it will have gluten in it. When you rough handle flour, it just does not like it, okay? It will make your food taste rubbery and dry and disgusting. I used to think things like this didn't matter. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Like, why does it matter if you spoon and level your flour? But it really does make a difference. But you just take the other side of your spoon and level it. Now it's leveled perfectly, and that's 1 cup. And it wasn't packed tightly. And I'm gonna do that again for another cup and a half. Now I'm gonna add a teaspoon of salt. This recipe actually calls for shortening as well, but I'm gonna do an all butter crust. I prefer all butter. So instead of just 6 tablespoons of butter, I'm gonna do a full stick. And you just cut it up into pieces so that it doesn't have to work as hard to break it up. Now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and blend this until it's crumbly. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of water. You need 1/2 cup of ice water. I put some ice and water in this cup so that it could get really cold, but I'm gonna measure it out because this is obviously more than 1/2 cup. I cannot get over how bad I am at making crust sometimes. Like, they turn out okay. I just wish they looked better. I'm just really bad at making crust, I feel like. It's so hard. I will perfect this though. I know I will. I just have to keep trying. These 2 little discs right here, I'm gonna put them in some saran wrap. You're gonna wanna put them in the fridge for at least 2 hours, and if not, put it in the freezer for 30 minutes, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. That's all it takes for the pie crust. I say that lightly because it is very difficult if you aren't used to doing it, which I am not yet. While I'm letting that sit in the freezer and chill for a little bit, because you definitely want to keep it cold. That's the whole point. That is the key to a very delicious and flaky crust. I'm going to go ahead and prep the apples and the spices and everything else I need for this apple pie. So first, I'm going to use this potato peeler and peel all of the apples, and then I'm going to core them, and then the little slices I'm going to cut into little thinner slices. All the apples are sliced up. I sliced and diced them. Well, I just sliced them. I mixed together some nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, and sugar. Then we have flour and cornstarch, more of that fresh milled flour, and the juice from a lemon, which is about 1 tablespoon. And we're gonna need a little more sugar to sprinkle on top, so I'm just leaving this out. If you want the sweetest sweeteners in the world, try Wholesome Sweet. They are really good. Have 2 tablespoons of butter melting on the stove, and we're going to put the apples in and coat them in the butter, and then we're gonna add the spices and the sugar. So I'm gonna do that now. This is about to smell so good too, because every time I do this, it smells good. Okay. They browned a little bit as I was working because it's still a work day for me, but they are still okay. So you just want to coat them in the butter, all of them. Then you're going to add all of the spices and the sugar. This is when it's about to start caramelizing and getting amazingly delicious up in here. I'm gonna let that cook for a minute, and then we're gonna add in the cornstarch and flour, and this is what's gonna thicken it up. I actually need to get a baking sheet out. Can't believe I didn't bring that out at first, since every Cooking with Raquel episode has a baking sheet. So you're gonna lower this to medium heat. It's on medium high. Sprinkle in the flour and the cornstarch and just stir all of that in. And be as messy as you can, according to me. And it smells like Christmas time in here. While I'm letting that thicken up, I'm gonna bring out the pie crust we made earlier. They're kind of hard, so you want them to just soften up a little bit because we're gonna have to roll these out. I'm not even looking forward to this part because I'm so embarrassed at how bad I am at crust. This is a pie pan we're gonna use. It's a 9-inch. You're actually gonna need 2 baking sheets. That way when we put the pie on top, if anything leaks out, it falls onto the baking sheet. I just turned off the heat for the apples, and I'm going to mix in the lemon juice and put it on this baking sheet. So you just wanna mix everything in really well. The heat is off. These smell so good. All right, and then you're just going to put it on this baking sheet. Now I'm gonna put this in the oven and preheat the oven to 425 degrees. It's not gonna stay at that temperature the whole time, much like most baked goods. Where's my rolling pin? Hi, rolling pin. Lightly flour your surface. Let's see if I can do it the way they do in shows. Kind of. You know what? This actually is not that bad. This is what it looks like now. It's very warm. I have an egg wash here. It's just 1 egg and a tablespoon of milk. And if you get yourself a pastry brush, you're just gonna brush the top of your pie with this. Sprinkle it with some sugar, some coarse sugar if you have. Then we're gonna cut 2 slits at the top so that it's ventilated. Literally painting a masterpiece. You're gonna sprinkle it with some sugar, and you're just gonna put a little slit in the middle like an X. You can also do a lattice crust where you form little strips and you place them over each other. So the pie is ready to go. This is what it looks like right now. And it's kind of brown because of that fresh milled flour. We're gonna go ahead and put it in the oven on that baking sheet that's been preheating in there. So I just set the timer for 20 minutes. It's going to bake at 425 for 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna turn the heat down to 375. It's gonna bake for about 30 to 40 minutes or so after. The hardest part actually is letting it sit at room temperature before we cut into it, because it's gonna smell really good and we're gonna wanna slice, but we cannot eat it. Once this is done baking, I'm gonna come back and show you guys the golden brown crust. I will see you in about an hour.
3 hours later.
And here's the finished product. We had a slice while it was still warm, but this tastes way better the next day after the flavors have settled together. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
All quiet on set.